Hello, and welcome to my new video series, rating the voices of Disney princesses and also a couple of Disney queens. To let you know what I'll be rating them on, the first thing is quality of the voice. Is the timbre good? Is the vibrato even and natural, or is it uneven or off-putting in some way? Are the vowels nice and resonant, and consonants as well? Are there any strange pathologies, like is it nasal or breathy? Does the voice have good agility and stamina and breath support? That sort of thing. The second thing is, does the princess match the age that she is supposed to be? So for instance, if a princess is 16, does she sound like a 16-year-old, or does she sound like a 35-year-old pretending to be a 16-year-old? The final thing is the difficulty of the pieces of the princesses. So are there any melismatic passages? Are there any moments of great sustain? That sort of thing. Is it a high tessitura or a low tessitura? Are there any extremes happening to make the piece more challenging? So without further ado, we'll start with Disney's very first princess, Snow White. The movie Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs came out in 1937 and was Disney's very first animated full-length feature film. And having said that, there was a lot of pressure on the titular character Snow White, who was voiced by Adriana Caselotti. And she was born into quite a musical family. Actually, her sister Louise was the tutor for the very famous opera singer Maria Callas, which is nothing to scoff at. Adriana sang the role of Snow White and spoke it whenever she was age 18, so she was still quite young whenever she was performing this role. And Snow White is 14 years old, and I really think that this worked in her favor to keep the youthfulness of the voice present for such a young princess. Snow White is technically Disney's youngest princess in the main canon, which I find pretty interesting that the oldest princess is the youngest princess. She had three pieces that she sang: I'm Wishing, Someday My Prince Will Come, and Whistle While You Work. All of these pieces sit in rather high tessitura, so it was really important that Adriana be a true soprano, which I feel that she was. However, I think that a lot of her vowels were quite collapsed and that she had overly nasal passages in her voice. So for instance, when she sang Someday My Prince Will Come, someday my prince will come, someday we'll meet again, and the wedding bells will ring. It's really difficult to sing with that much nasality and the vowels that collapsed. So I think that if Adriana had opened up the vowels a bit more, someday my prince will come, someday we'll meet again, and the wedding bells will run. It makes it much easier to reach those high notes. Adriana didn't really seem to have any trouble with the high notes, but I think that the tone wouldn't have been quite as peculiar if she had opened up the resonance a bit more. Having said that, I think it's important to note that recording technology has come a really long way since 1937, and Adriana was able to stay in tune quite well considering she didn't have any sort of tuning correction technology at the time. However, her vibrato was really uneven in a lot of places, and it was quite fast too, so it was hard to overlook that sort of thing in her voice. So I would say, as far as timbre goes, I would give her a 4 out of 10 because, again, there was that pathology of being overly nasal. The vibrato is too fast and also really uneven. But she did have a good upper range and reached those notes with seemingly no trouble. The second thing is that she was very age appropriate. She sounded like a very young singer because she was. So I think that for that category, I would give her a 9 out of 10. As far as difficulty of the pieces, they do sit in a higher tessitura than a lot of other Disney princesses. I think that really until Princess Anna sang The Next Right Thing, there really weren't any Disney princesses who sang as high prior to like the classics such as Snow White and Princess Aurora, who both were very, very high soprano voices. Having said all of that, I do want to say a few things about Adriana Caselotti and how I feel kind of sorry for her. She had agreed to not do any other voices other than Snow White. Disney had made her sign a contract saying that she wouldn't do any other voice acting. And so I think that we kind of miss a lot of what she could have been later in her career, considering that she was only 18 whenever she performed the role. And I really wonder, like, with her father, Guido, who was a voice instructor, and her mother was also an opera singer, I really think that she probably had a lot of development happen throughout her life, but that she had to match the tone of Snow White to appease Disney. Having said all of that, I really feel bad for her in some ways, and it's kind of sad. But Adriana Caselotti enjoyed a lot of success from her career as Snow White and really loved singing the part. So, silver linings. However, I will say that Snow White's voice is my least favorite out of all of the Disney princesses. No offense to Adriana, but it just has too many pathologies and the collapsed sound is really not great. On top of that, the story of Snow White is so off-putting in so many ways. I recognize that 1937 was a very long time ago, but when I watched this film for the purpose of this video, I had forgotten, I suppose, that the huntsman weeps at her feet after trying to kill her in the forest, and poor Snow White just runs, like, terrified into the night. A little 14-year-old girl. And she dies and gets kissed by an 18-year-old who wakes her up, I guess, to marry her. It's just very odd altogether. Also, the dynamic between her and the evil queen is quite toxic in a lot of ways, and I think I'm just going to go on a brief tangent about that since this is my video and I'm going to do what I want to do. The evil queen kind of fed into the idea that a daughter will steal your beauty. I hate that quote because it's not true, and beauty shouldn't be a currency that women use against each other. Beauty is not a currency, and it's not owed to anyone because it's subjective. There's no perfect standard of beauty. You can argue all you want to about symmetry and all of that, but there are plenty of people that are asymmetrical that are very beautiful, and it doesn't just have to do with your physicality. Who you are inside makes you beautiful too, and I want to make a big note of that because I think it's really important to say, especially if I have younger people watching this video. I want you to know that beauty is not a currency, and I feel bad for the evil queen because she was made to feel like the only reason why she was important was because she was beautiful. And that made her evil, and it's very sad. So anyway, poor Snow White didn't deserve all of that. She was just a child, and her voice, although peculiar, had a nice high tone to it. Before I end this video about Snow White, I do want to talk about the very first person who was supposed to be Snow White. She was talked of as potential casting for the role, the famous American coloratura Lily Pons. And if you've never heard Lily Pons, I will link one of her videos down below. Her voice was so beautiful and had beautiful agility. Again, Adriana Caselotti made Snow White her own And of course, it's been so long now that you can't separate Snow White from the voice of Adriana. It just is her voice. But if it had been Lily Pons, I would have liked it more because I love Lily Pons' voice. It's great. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please tune in to the next one where I will be talking about Cinderella and her voice, and I'm very much looking forward to that video. Cinderella was actually Walt Disney's favorite princess, but I will talk about that more in the future. So I hope that you all have a beautiful musical day, and I will talk to you soon.